Discontented Ghost, Chapter 18. All this took a while, of course, and afterwards I had to report to Lady Eleanor. By the time she left, it was well into the breakfast hour, which normally would have found me in the library, waiting to see how things were going with Wash and Sheila. I hurried over, but with no hope of being more than an observer of a passing show. Regretfully, I faced the fact that there was simply not time enough left for me to do anything to assist the young love in that quarter. I had Mr. Holmes to think about. Even now, he and Dr. Watson were bearing down on us aboard a train from London. It seemed only prudent to be safely out of the way before he appeared and began putting two and two together in his inimitable fashion. Lady Eleanor, seeing the funeral as a fait accompli, was confident she would get clearance for me on this score. I don't doubt they will agree. I'm sure they will not want to take chances. I'm sure they would not put it past Mr. Holmes to lay even the Canterville ghost by the heels and deliver him into custody, she declared. Even so, there was still time for one last visit to the library. When I arrived, lovely Sheila, faithful as always to the furniture, was working away. Her auburn hair glorious in the morning light that streamed through the stained-glass window. And I hardly had settled myself on my accustomed perch when Wash came striding in. According to Lady Eleanor, on top of everything else, he had been inflaming himself with the poetry of Algernon Charles Swinburne, who was considered pretty hot stuff in those days. Given Wash's condition, this was certainly carrying coals to Newcastle. But in any event, it did nothing to reduce his head of steam. As he entered the room, it was plain that the mere sight of Sheila was enough to make him start giving off heat waves. Darling! Wide-eyed and determined, he bore down on her. She dropped her polishing cloth and backed away. "Oh, sir, spare me," she begged piteously. He seized her hand. "Please, listen to me. I have no wicked designs on you, Sheila. I'm here to... Well, I've made up my mind and... Dearest Sheila, will you marry me?" "Washington." The response came not from Sheila, but from the pop-eyed turkey-cock in the doorway. Needless to say, his paternal roar froze the hapless pair into a tableau that could have gone straight into Madame Tussauds wax museum. The minister turned to loose another roar in the direction of the breakfast room. "Lucretia, come in here." Mrs. Otis appeared at something more than her usual stately pace. "Hiram, whatever is the matter?" "Everything is the matter. This son of yours." How the minister might have described the situation was lost to posterity, for at that instant the sounds of a carriage approaching the front of the house could be heard via the great entrance hall, where the front door had been opened to admit the warming rays of the sun. "Oh, good Lord, someone's coming," groaned the minister. "It must be Dr. Holmes and Dr. Watson. They must have caught an earlier train. Now I'll go greet them. The rest of you stay here and act natural," he ordered, and bustled away, leaving them looking about as natural as one of those tableaus I mentioned. No one was more anxious to find out if the minister's assumptions were correct than I was. Little did he know that I reached the hall as quickly as he did, and both of us made it well ahead of Shadwell the butler. To my vast relief, it was not Sherlock Holmes who stepped down from the carriage. Rather, it was a portly, authoritative-looking gentleman who might have been a larger British version of the American minister himself. Hurrying out, the minister walked to the top of the broad steps to meet him. "Minister Otis, I presume?" "Yes, sir." "I am Sir Lansing Carruthers," said the stranger, offering his hand. "Mr. Sherlock Holmes has asked me to be present at Canterville Chase this morning, having assured me that matters requiring my special knowledge may transpire." "Sir Lansing Carruthers!" cried the minister. "Well, I'll be blowed. You are the famous gemologist, I believe, the one who—" "Spare my blushes, sir," said Sir Lansing, bowing with patently false modesty as he unblushingly stole a line from Holmes' own repertoire. Well, come in and make yourself at home, Sir Lansing," urged the minister, recovering himself. "We're expecting Mr. Holmes on the 10:40 train, so he should be here by 11:30 at the latest." Whilst they came inside, I hurried back to my perch. I was there in time to see them enter. "Lucretia, look who's here," said Minister Otis, bowing Sir Lansing through the door. "It's Sir Lansing Carruthers." "Sheila?" Sir Lansing had stopped in his tracks and was staring at our parlor maid with popping eyes and rapidly reddening face. "Sheila, what are you doing here? And in that ridiculous get-up? You're supposed to be in Rome studying art. Is this another one of your blasted social experiments?" "Daddy." Sheila would have swooned into Wash's arms, but she was not the swooning type. "What are you doing here, of all places?" "Dash it all, girl, why shouldn't I be here? Mr. Sherlock Holmes—" "Oh, for heaven's sake, it's those silly jewels." Sir Lansing's face tended dangerously toward the purple end of the spectrum. "Silly jewels? You call jewels silly?" "Oh, Daddy, you know I didn't mean that. It's just that, well, of all times, just when... It is wonderful to see what one-track minds people have. The way they can always keep their own interests firmly in view, no matter what may be going on around them. At any rate, Master Washington chose this very moment to step forward with a pale face and blurt out, "Sir, I want to marry your daughter." That almost did it for Sir Lansing. He stood transfixed, gasping like a fish out of water, which gave Wash time to turn to Sheila and say, "Sheila, will you marry me?" Sheila's pretty face was a study in harebrained contrast. "Oh, Wash, I don't know," she babbled. "When I was supposed to be unworthy of you, I felt worthy of you. But now that I'm worthy of you, I feel unworthy of you." Wash stared at her for a throbbing moment, and then he seemed to change before our very eyes. Suddenly, he somehow expanded and grew into those puppy paws and feet of his. Suddenly, Wash the boy was gone, and Washington the man had taken his place. Reaching out in a masterly way, Washington took one of Sheila's wrists in a firm grasp. "Sheila, come outside," he ordered. "I want to talk to you alone." And while the rest of us watched silently, he dragged her toward the door, past her father, past his, out into the great entrance hall and through the open door. Her feeble protest died away into the shrubbery. Sir Lansing watched this performance with an expression that went from outrage to stupefaction to dawning satisfaction. "Bless my soul," he growled. "If there's anything that girl needs." He turned with a tooth-grinding smile to his host. "Minister Otis, do you happen to have a spot of whiskey in the house?" "I certainly do, sir," said the minister, "and the sooner we locate it, the better. This way."